Good morning, guys. We're going to read the next chapter in Flying Solo, published by Sandpiper. I have permission to read it to you guys through video from Sandpiper. This is a very, very short chapter, only a page and a half long, but that's all I'm going to read today because the next chapter is a little bit longer, and I don't want to make my videos extremely long to where you guys lose focus and you don't listen to the remainder of the video. Remember my Star Student competition this week, that the students that participate the most in the comments of the video and answering the questions that I ask at the end of the video will get a Star Student prize dropped off at their door on Friday afternoon. This chapter is at 7:19 a.m. and it's about Mrs. Muchmore. Wendy Muchmore woke with a throbbing headache. Every bone in her body ached. Every joint was on fire. She wanted to go back to sleep, but she couldn't. Today, she was subbing in Mr. Fabiano's 6th grade class at the Paulson Elementary School. She had to be there by 8:12 a.m. sharp. So she's supposed to substitute for Mr. Fabiano. Very important when you have a substitute that they are there on time and they're there when they're supposed to be and that they don't call in, because if they call in, then they have to find another substitute very, very quickly. She tried to sit up, but lifting her head brought out such a fit of dizziness she felt like throwing up. She groaned. There was no choice but to call in and take a sick day. They would have to find a substitute for the substitute. With some effort, she lifted the heavy phone book and found the number of the school. So being sick's not fun, but being a substitute, you have a very important job because you're there to work in place of the teacher when the teacher doesn't feel good or when the teacher has to go to a training class. And so Mr. Fabiano depended on Mrs. Muchmore, and now she's sick and can't come in. And I know that, like, when I feel sick, it's a tough choice for me to call in sick because I need to be there for you guys. But sometimes I can't be my best if I don't feel good. Paulson Elementary School. Yes, good morning. This is Mrs. Muchmore. Her voice sounded shaky. I'm scheduled to substitute for Mr. Fabiano today. 6th grade? Unfortunately, I'm sick today, so I can't come in. You're supposed to call the registry when you're sick. It was Mrs. Pierce, the school secretary, and she sounded annoyed. That's school district policy. Didn't they tell you? Why do you think the secretary would be annoyed? Let's think about that. She's the substitute. She's supposed to come in and work. And now she's not because she's sick. So, I agree the substitute would be annoyed because now the substitute has to find somebody else to cover her place. And when you're working with just a small amount of time at the beginning of the school day, that can be really stressful. Like, sometimes you have to find a substitute and they have to get to the school within like 30 minutes. And that's really hard to do sometimes. Yes, well, I forgot. I'll make note of it, Mrs. Pierce said, but next time, please phone the registry. She hung up. Wendy sighed and put the phone down. That's the end of the chapter. I want you to think about Mrs. Muchmore. She said that she would substitute for Mr. Fabiano. And, everybody gets sick. It's okay that she got sick. But now she's having to go back on her word of saying that she would sub. So basically, she said she would sub, but now she's not. So she's going back on that. I want you to think about how you feel. If you said that you were going to do something, like maybe you told a friend that you were going to come over on a certain day, or that you were going to give somebody something, and then you decided that you couldn't do that, or you didn't want to do that. How does that make you feel? For me, when I say that I'm going to do something and then I end up not doing it, I feel very guilty. Or I feel very sad. And even mad at myself because I said I was going to do something, but I didn't. So I want you to think about Mrs. Muchmore. How do you think she feels about having to now go back on her word that she would substitute for Mr. Fabiano? I understand she's sick, but deep down, how do you think she feels about that? Post your comments, or post your response in the comments. Remember, our Star Student Awards depend on your comments, okay? See you guys tomorrow with a new chapter.